Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly Purple Penny coin video. My name's Mark. I own and run the Purple Penny along with my wife Catherine. We've been here for over 4 years. Last week I believe I said over 3 years. It's been over 4 years now. We've been doing these videos for about 3.5 years. We try to hold them every Monday at 12 o'clock Adelaide time. Adelaide being where the Purple Penny is. The Purple Penny is a small family-owned coin and banknote business. It's just me and my wife Catherine, and we have Jared who comes in 3 days a week to help us out. Right, last week, miserable weather here on Thursday, and we do see a pretty strong correlation between the quality of the weather and the number of people that come in. So Thursday was a quiet day in here. But Saturday was crazy busy. We had 20 or 30 people in the shop at one point, which I never ever thought would happen here. I never thought it would be busy like that. Purchase of the week was a little bag of ancient and medieval coins on Friday. Someone came in with a bag of about 80 or 90 medieval and ancient coins. Nothing too fabulous, but do watch out on our social media over the upcoming weeks as Jared and I pick through those and identify them. Probably having more fun with them than we should, because of course we do buy things here to sell. Other news during the week, of course, was that we had the Edward the Emu Book Week coins released on Friday, the third in the Book Week series that the Royal Australian Mint has released. As per the last two releases, we only got a small allocation, and that was pretty much all taken up by people who had expressed interest in those items before release day. So, as always, if we are taking names, if you're interested in new releases and we're taking names, then do get your name in to us, at least a week before release. There's no point ringing us up the day before, or as many people did last Thursday night, trying to ring us up at 8 and 9 and 10 o'clock at night, because it's too late. It is well too late, but certainly a week before releases you're quite welcome to contact us, and we'll do our level best to allocate everyone something. Let's say a few hellos. Hello Adam and Brett and Pauline and Wendy and Michael and Mike and Tanya and Gwen, Adam, John and Paul. Thank you everyone for saying hello, and I'm well, thank you Brett, thank you for asking. And Brian says it was crazy busy on Saturday. Brian was in here with his wife Karen on Saturday. Brian and Karen have been coming here ever since we've opened. It was lovely to see them. We don't see them as often as we'd like, and it was extremely busy when they were in here on Saturday. And thank you to Karen for her kind words about the shop when she was in here on Saturday. It was lovely of her to say what she said, and I did pass it on to Catherine. So Brian, if you could let her know, Catherine says thank you as well. Hello Charlie, how you going? Right, let's jump into the news here. So I've just done the RAM release roundup. I guess like always, if you are chasing last week's mint releases, please don't overpay. Generally prices go up quickly on releases that are hard to get hold of, and a lot of the time they do settle back. So if you are chasing them on the secondary market, you may be better off leaving it a few weeks until the hype has gone away, and perhaps there's going to be another release that diverts everyone's attention. There was yet another Channel 9 online article that popped up this week. Journalist over there clearly follows Joel on the History of Money channel and picks out one of his videos every now and again to do a news story on, and I thought I've done this 2 or 3 times now, where I actually go and have a look at what the coin is selling for in the real world and see how that stacks up against what the journalist has chosen to report on based on Joel's videos. Joel's videos are usually pretty accurate, and I just like to fact check those. So this time it was the 2015 Lest We Forget coin, which of course is the red ring 2015 coin. You can see one there. There were 1.466 million of those minted, which is slightly lower than the average mintage for a $2 coin. and the catalogue value, at least in the catalogue that I've got, which is not this year's, it's last year's, is just $8 in uncirculated. Sales on eBay seem to range between $20 and $30 for X-roll and X-bag coins, so those are uncirculated coins, and the news articles seem to suggest that the coins were worth $20 or $30, so it is accurate from that point of view, but circulated coins were only getting sort of $4, $5 or $6 on eBay. So, you know, if you do find one of these in your change, is it worth more than face value? Yeah, probably. If you take the time to sell it, you'll probably get more than $2, but are you going to get $20 or $30? No, probably not. And to the many eBay sellers who are selling these coins that have lifted images off of our website, go and get your own images. I can't stand it when people just steal images from us. Go and get your own images and sell coins that you actually own instead of selling coins that you don't own. So there you go. Right, next item was a really interesting thing that came up in the news last week, and thank you to Greg from the Gravy Train for sharing this one for me. A bit of background: damaged coins, so damaged dollar coins and $2 coins, are returned to the Reserve Bank by banks, who then, I believe, pass them either onto the mint or send them off to China for scrapping, so they are actually scrapped. And it turns out that someone, you'd imagine it's some sort of organised crime syndicate, was intercepting those coins in China where they were being scrapped and was shipping them back here to Australia, and they were being deposited in banks and people were profiting from that. So 2 Chinese nationals have been arrested in the last few days. One of them was a permanent resident, and he was a manager of a Subway franchise, I believe, and apparently in the last several years had reported to the tax office that he had earned much less than the average wage, yet somehow he owned several properties across Sydney. His female accomplice was arrested depositing a large number of damaged coins into a coin machine in Sydney, and it turns out that they had been smuggling scrapped damaged coins back into Australia, depositing them into banks and profiting from that. The intercepted shipment that Border Force intercepted was described as belt buckles, which is really interesting. So, you know, what have you got here? You've basically got people that have contacts back in China that somehow are getting their hands on these coins, having them sent back here to Australia, and then they're depositing them in the bank, and they're basically stealing. So what can be done about this? Well, Catherine and I had a chat about this morning. In the USA, the coins, damaged coins and worn out coins, are actually mutilated, I believe, by the US mints. It's called waffling, so they run them through a press or a roller or something like that, and waffle them. They end up looking like waffles, the baked good, and then when they're sent to be scrapped, it's obvious that those coins are defaced. So I suspect that someone at the Reserve Bank or the Royal Australian Mint is probably going to implement something like that for our damaged and defaced coins, so that when they are shipped out as scrap metal, they cannot be sent back into the country and taken advantage of like these 2 lowlifes. So interestingly, the male who reports the low income and has the string of properties, his bail has been denied because of course he is a flight risk. So that's an interesting bit of coin news there. Another bit of coin news: we're not talking about coins dug up in the UK for once, we're talking about coins dug up in the USA. So there is an excavation of a mass grave going on in Williamsburg, which is a town in, I think it's Virginia. Apologies if it's not in Virginia. Perhaps someone who knows could tell me what US state Williamsburg is in. There was a battle in the US Civil War there in 1862, 70,000 soldiers involved between the 2 sides, which you may or may not know was the Union or the North, and the Confederates, who were the South. The Confederates were trying to secede from the United States of America. Nearly 4,000 soldiers were killed in that battle. And there is a historical society in Williamsburg that at the moment is trying to restore what's called the powder magazine to its original condition. It's a large stone building, and as a part of that restoration process they have uncovered a mass grave. A few years ago they uncovered that, and they excavated recently 4 skeletons. The skeletons they believe belong to Confederate soldiers, who again, they are the people that were trying to secede from the USA. And along with a number of other artifacts, they did find 2 $1 gold coins. And how did 2 $1 gold coins get buried with a body? Well, they think that, judging by the debris that was around the 2 coins, that the man who was killed actually had them sewn into the waistline of his trousers to prevent them from being found. So these little gold coins are only tiny little things, 1.7 grams, 90% gold, and 15 millimeters, so smaller than a 5-cent piece. Just tiny little gold coins that were found, both dated 1855 and from a total mintage of just over 750,000. So really interesting coins found there in an archaeological excavation at a Civil War battle site at Williamsburg. New release from the Royal Mint, and I'm shamelessly promoting this one because I love Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien being, of course, the gentleman who wrote The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. I have been a Tolkien fan since I was a young teenager, and of course those books were made into movies in the early 2000s, the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then the Hobbit trilogy a few years later, and of course there has been an Amazon Prime Video series that was released last year, which is based on that work. So Tolkien passed away in 1973, so the Royal Mint has released a coin to commemorate the 50th anniversary of his passing, and you can see the design of the coin there. It's got a monogram that Tolkien himself designed from his own initials, so JRRT is there in that monogram, and the edge of the coin is inscribed with the words "Not all those who wander are lost," which is one of the lines that Tolkien wrote as part of his book series, this fantasy world that he created. So these coins are available in a number of different formats, including BU, which is basically a circulation £2 coin in a folder for £12, a gold proof for £1,250, a silver proof for £77.50, and a Peedfit silver proof for £127.50. If you're not sure what a Peedfit is, that is a double thickness coin. So one would imagine that the silver Peedfit has twice the amount of silver in it that the silver proof does. So that's a really interesting Tolkien coin there. Last news item for the day is how coins can be used in your day-to-day life to make making decisions easier. I read a really interesting article by Kit Yates, who's an author who wrote a book called How to Expect the Unexpected, and Kit is suggesting that in today's day and age, with all the choices that we have as consumers, because there are a lot of people selling products. So for example, let's say you were to buy a webcam, which is just up here taking photos of me. There are a lot of different choices for webcams on the market, and that seems to be the way for many products, including coins. And it leads to us being overwhelmed with choice, and for a lot of people it leads to anxiety because they're scared they're going to miss out, they're scared they're going to make the wrong decision, and a lot of the time when they're trying to make their decisions they're worried that they're actually wasting their time on it. And you know, these are all things that I have experienced myself, and as a consequence we feel indecisive and unhappy often when we're making purchasing decisions. And that's because of partially because of a thing called the nirvana fallacy, which is that, you know, somewhere deep in our brains there, we believe that there is a perfect solution. That if I just keep looking 5 minutes longer, I'll find one that's better, cheaper, that has better features, has a lower mintage, is made of gold, or if I just hunt around, I'll find it $2 cheaper there, or I'll get cheaper shipping over there. And as a consequence, we spend hours and hours and hours analysing the decision we're going to make. And often, if we just made the first choice that crossed our path, then that would have been, while not the best solution, would have been a good solution. And the term that Kit Yates uses is that we need to understand or learn how to be satisfied. And that means that we need to be satisfied with something that suffices our demand. And what's one way that you can do that? You can line up the options for the things that you're choosing from, so the coins that you're choosing, have all the information that you've got in hand, and then actually toss a coin and allow the coin to make a decision for you. And that will stop you from endlessly searching for something cheaper or something with different alternatives or things like that, because there is a saying that says looking for the best solution is an enemy of a good solution, and sometimes a quick decision is better than a slower decision. And tossing a coin or rolling a dice is a good way of perhaps making us more content with the decisions we make. So coins in everyday life. Right, topic of the week is counterfeits, and there's a couple of reasons why I want to talk about this. We had a watcher last week send me a message later after the video asking about collecting counterfeits, and then we also had one of our very good customers ring up on the phone who was quite anxious about a coin that he had been given. He was quite anxious about the idea that it was fake, because he had watched a video where I'd spoken about fakes several months ago. So fakes and counterfeits, what are they? Well, obviously they're fake coins or counterfeit coins. And are they collectible? Yes, absolutely. If you're ever here in the shop and we're not too busy, do ask to have a look at our fake and counterfeit box. We have quite a large box full of all the fakes and counterfeits that we've acquired here in the last few years, and I find them fascinating. I don't say that I actively collect them, but I do know of people that do. And for example, I know of a coin dealer that is trying to put together an entire date run of counterfeit florins, so filling out a florin push-in album all with counterfeits, which is going to be difficult because a lot of the later dates were not commonly counterfeited. Why are counterfeits made? And funnily enough, it's not as simple as what you'd think. There are a lot of reasons why counterfeits are made. The most obvious one is that people make them for currency. Not something that you see that much anymore, because our coins are very difficult to counterfeit, but it does still happen. If you've been in and around coin collecting for a while, you would know about the 2003 counterfeit $2 coins, and also the 1996 and 97 counterfeit $2 coins. The real reason why modern coins aren't often counterfeited is that the face value, or the purchasing power of the face value these days, is quite low. So it's not necessarily worth the effort of counterfeiting most coins. That being said, in the UK, they did redesign their £1 and £2 coins, because they did estimate that somewhere between 1 and 2% of the £1 and £2 coins in circulation were counterfeit. So it was a real problem in the UK. But back in the day, back in the early 20th century, the purchasing power of larger silver coins such as shillings and florins was undeniable. A florin may well have been half a day's pay. So if you could successfully counterfeit a florin and then pass it off, then there was a real financial benefit for you to doing so. So what we've got there are two different forgeries, and they're both created for different reasons, believe it or not. The top one is a base metal forgery, so it's something that's probably been cast in sand with lead or pot metal being the white metal that saucepans are made from. And then it was probably passed in a bar or a pub or in a handful of change, and in an attempt that the counterfeiter could get it passed off as real money. The bottom one there is slightly different. It's a 1928 counterfeit shilling, and it's made from silver. Why on earth would someone make a counterfeit shilling from silver? Well, because the people that made those counterfeit shillings, they had a different final market for their counterfeit shillings. They wanted to pass them off to banks. So that shilling was made in China. It was made from good silver, probably 92 to 95% silver. They were imported in large batches from China to Australia in the 1920s, where a group of people were taking them around and depositing them into various banks around Sydney. Now, why on earth would you do that? Well, because you could have probably created one of these shillings in China for, perhaps only threepence or something, and then you can put it into a bank here in Australia and get a shilling from it. Not dissimilar to the damaged coin scam, which we talked about earlier, and a different type of counterfeit. Now, both of those counterfeits are very collectible. The bottom one there, exceptionally so. They are very difficult to find, those counterfeits. Next type of counterfeit is what I am calling a bullion counterfeit. So this is a counterfeit that is designed to be passed off as silver or gold or some other type of bullion. So what we've got there is a picture of a fake round 50 on the left hand side and a picture of a real round 50-cent piece on the right hand side. Now, round 50s are only worth about $15. Why would you bother faking round 50s? Well, because if you were to take 100 of them into a coin dealer and sell them, and you might get $12 or $13 each for them, if you manage to slip in 3 or 4 fakes in there, then you are going to increase your takings by 10 or 15 or 20%. Now, that sounds unlikely, but we have had that exact thing happen to us here in the shop, where people have tried to pass off a couple of fake 50s in a larger batch of real round 50s. We have purchased silver from bullion dealers. We went into a bullion dealer one day and asked him if he had any 1 ounce rounds. He had several dozen that he had bought the day before. And unfortunately, he'd only tested the first 5 or 6 and then purchased the rest without examining them too closely, and there were several fakes in the stack. Now, again, why would you bother doing that? Well, because if you can import these fakes from wherever they come from for $1 each and then manage to sell them for $30 or $35, that's a pretty good return on your investment. So I call these bullion counterfeits. These are intended to deceive. They are not. They are just really designed to deceive someone and try and profit from that deception. The next type of fake is what I'm calling a jewellery fake. So a lot of countries around the world, jewellers do make fake coins expressly for jewellery. And the two most common places I can think of are Southeast Asia and places around Lebanon. And that's because in Lebanon, for example, there is a long history of gold only really being trusted if it is in coin form. So jewelers in that part of the world will make fake sovereigns and fake 20 francs and things like that. And they're not intended to be passed off as fake coins. They are just created that way because that's how people in that part of the world expect their gold to be. And in Southeast Asia, you see the same type of thing. So what I've got pictured there is a US $20 coin. It's a common US $20 coin, so even if it was real, it's not worth much more than the gold. What it does have that sets it apart is a giant Chinese chop mark on the reverse, and that's just to say that, hey, this is a fake. This is not a real coin. This is what we call a jeweller's copy. It's not intended to be passed off as a real coin. It's intended as a way of holding gold. Perhaps it could be mounted into a piece of jewellery. And why are these dangerous? Well, because for two reasons. Firstly, some people do mistake them for real coins, which is dangerous. And secondly, they don't always contain the same amount of gold that the actual coin does. So the Lebanese or Middle Eastern sovereign copies often contain more gold than a real sovereign, and this $20 coin here, for example, only contained about 80% gold as opposed to 90%. So jeweller's copies can still be dangerous and probably should be avoided. We tend to melt them when they come in here because we don't like having them around. Next time, a counterfeit. These next two are probably the same type. These are counterfeits that are the most dangerous. These are the ones that are intended purely for collectors. So these are either mass produced in China and places like that, or perhaps here in Australia, and they are usually key date coins, and they are either bought unwittingly by collectors to fill holes in collections, or they are bought deliberately by collectors because they know they can never afford a key date coin, so they buy a fake to put in there. Either way, they lead to confusion and angst. Confusion from the collectors who buy them themselves, thinking that they're real, and then when it comes time to dispose of their collection, they find out that they're fake. But primarily the angst comes when the collector passes their collection on, perhaps because they pass away, and the people who receive the collection are looking through it and they find a 1930 penny or a centenary florin or whatever it is, Google it, realise it's worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, don't understand that there's fakes around, and then bring them into dealers like us and have their dreams destroyed, unfortunately. So I find these to be the most dangerous types of fakes. And then the last one, well, it's not the last one I want to talk about today, but is what we call altered dates. So these are real coins that have been altered in some way to make them look like a valuable coin. These two here, for example, are altered date 1930 pennies. Why? Unknown. Perhaps because someone's trying to fill a space in a collection, perhaps because someone is trying to be deceptive and sell it off to either a collector or a dealer as a real coin. I find altered date coins to be fascinating because they do have a lot of work put into them, and I've not seen a convincing one, but they are another type of fake or counterfeit that is very collectible. So the last type of fake I'm going to call a fantasy, and these are always Asian made coins that were not real coins in the first place. So here we've got some sort of Chinese cash fake. It looks, it's not a bad fake, but it's way too big, and it's what we would call a fantasy. So this is not a real coin, but could be sold as a real coin in, a tourist market or something like that, and then people forget where they got it and think it's real. And then we get other types of fakes. These are, one of the most common ones we see in here are early US dollars. This is a $1,800 with a head side of one design and a tail side of another design that were never actually used together. And these are passed off in tourist markets and things like that. If you want to see how common these are, go and join a US coin group on Facebook and see how many times people there ask what their $1,800 or $1,804 is worth, because they're all fakes. And then we've got this sort of thing here, which is a complete fantasy. So it's a design that never existed. Both sides are just completely fabricated. You'll often see these in markets for a couple of bucks each. And then the last type is a similar sort of thing where they've actually put a known obverse of a coin with some sort of fabricated reverse. So again, another fantasy piece. We had a gentleman come in here one day who had been paid in large silver coins for making a pergola, several dozen of them, and in lieu of a few $1,000s worth of work, and they were all that type of fantasy. So he was completely deceived by those. So that's counterfeits, fakes, forgeries, fantasies, whatever you want to call them. They are an interesting thing. They are very collectible. Of course, decimal coin forgeries are illegal to sell, so please don't be selling fake decimal coins. It is very illegal here in Australia, but I really wouldn't worry too much about collecting counterfeit pre-decimals. They are quite collectible, and I don't believe the government would be too interested in those if you're dealing in those. And Greg Gibbons has just talked about Swan dollars, the 1967 Swan pattern dollar designed by Andor Mazaros. They're very popular for fakes and fantasies. So yes, there are some very good fakes of those getting around. A good friend of ours was hoodwinked by some of those on eBay. So, you know, what's the outcome from this? If you want to collect fakes and fantasies, that's fine. Make sure that they're completely documented in your collection so that no one else gets fooled by them. And if you are collecting valuable coins, then do be aware that there are fakes around. How to avoid that? Collect from reputable dealers, either in bricks and mortar stores or online. Think about only collecting key date coins in PCGS or NGC slabs, but do also be aware that there are fake NGC and PCGS slabs around, so make sure that you check the certificate number and things like that. So, interesting area of collecting. If I had more time, I would do it more often. Right, is there any questions here? John Belcher says that impulsively buying can also be hazardous to your health. Yeah, so the coin toss thing wasn't just saying to choose two stupid options and then have the coin decide which one. You still need to consider your options carefully. It's just at the point where you have as many considered options as is likely as necessary, then you could use the dice or the coin to choose one of those. And that's just to help you through what I call analysis paralysis, where you continue analysing all the purchases that you want to make and never actually make a decision. Wendy Sig says the Heads I Win story of David G. book Coin Forger is a great read. Yes, it is. There's also another one called The Phantom, I think, which is about the Manders and Twibble forgeries, and also covers the 1928 forgery shillings that I talked about before. They're both classics of Australian numismatics if you can actually get a hold of them. Mike says the 50 cent I showed is a very poor fake. So Mike, it is. But how they get it through is that they hide one fake one in a bunch of real ones and then hope they get away with it. And not just with dealers or bullion dealers, but also marketplace deals and things like that. So the fact that it's a poor fake, you know, for a lot of people they wouldn't notice. If you're shuffling through several dozen round 50s, you wouldn't necessarily notice. And Gail says, is it illegal to collect fake decimal coins? I believe so. So don't do it. Charlie says, do you see many fake PCGS slab coins come into your shop? No. I've never seen one. There was a group of fake purple coronations that I got told of last year. Someone on eBay was selling several MS64 purple coronations in PCGS slabs, and it turns out they all had the same certificate numbers, and the certificate number didn't match any of the coins. So they are around. They are around. So, you know, check the certificate number, check the sales history of people selling on eBay, and you know, do your best to open your eyes before you look. Anthony says, your opinion on the bullseye. Not sure what bullseye that is, Anthony. I've seen two bullseye things pop up this week. One was someone at eBay was selling a Bill the Steam Shovel bullseye, and they'd lifted one of the images off of our website, and they were selling it for $400, I think, which is a bit of an alternative on the cheap car scam on Facebook Marketplace, because of course real ones are worth far more than $400. And he of course didn't have the coin in the picture because A, it was our picture, and B, we know who owns it, and he hadn't sold it. So if you see something ridiculously cheap on eBay, you're going to get your fingers burnt if you give them money. So don't do it. And there was a fake ambulance bullseye, or I can't quite remember, peacekeeping bullseyes come up in the last couple of days that had paint on both sides. Bullseyes are coins, $2 coins that have paint applied to the incorrect side. Someone has worked out how to fake them. The fakes are quite easy to pick, so again, don't be buying them off of eBay unless you know exactly what you are doing. And Brad says he just bought an MS64 slab Coro off of eBay. Go and type the certificate number into the PCGS website, Brad, and make sure that the coin matches. Right, that's it for today. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you everyone for commenting. Pleasure as always. If you've got any topics for next week, please let me know, and we'll do our best to talk about it. Happy collecting everyone. Stay safe, and bye for now.